$53 billion. That is the exact amount of money the global antibiotic industry collected last year, selling pills and prescriptions to people who are sick, people who are aging, people who have no other option they were ever told about. $53 billion. And somewhere in that number there is a jar, a glass jar, sitting on a kitchen shelf, filled with garlic cloves and raw honey. It costs less than $3 to make. It takes 5 minutes to prepare. And over the course of 6 weeks, something happens inside that jar that no pharmaceutical company can patent, no doctor was trained to prescribe, and no health insurance will ever cover. This is not a recipe. This is a biological record. What you are about to see is what happens to allicin, the active compound in raw garlic, when it is submerged in raw honey and left undisturbed for 6 weeks. What it converts into, what that conversion means for the human body, and why this process, used for centuries as a lost plant remedy and a forgotten healing plant protocol, was quietly erased from the conversation the moment modern medicine decided that nature cannot be owned. My name is not important. What I found in an old medical archive, that is what matters. Stay with me. I want to tell you how I found this, not in a laboratory, not on a medical journal website. I found it in a collection of archived field documents, the kind that nobody digitizes, the kind that sits in a box in a university storage room, behind shelves of books nobody reads anymore. The document was dated 1944. The header read, Field Notes on Botanical Antiseptics, Soviet Eastern Front, for internal use only. That is where I first encountered the phrase, Russian penicillin. During World War II, when the Russian Red Army ran out of conventional antibiotics on the Eastern Front, military physicians turned to garlic, not as a last resort out of desperation. As a deliberate, documented medical protocol, they applied it directly to infected wounds. They administered it to soldiers with respiratory infections. It worked well enough that by the time the war ended, Western medical observers had given it a name, Russian penicillin. But this was not new, even then. Go back further. Go back to 1858. Louis Pasteur, the father of germ theory, the man who gave us the science that modern medicine is built on, demonstrated for the first time in recorded scientific history that garlic kills bacteria. He documented its antiseptic activity against pathogens in controlled conditions. He wrote it down. It went into the record. And 70 years later, when penicillin was finally discovered, the garlic that Pasteur had already documented was quietly set aside because penicillin could be manufactured, packaged, and sold. Go back further still. Around 1550 BC, Egyptian physicians recorded garlic in the Ebers Papyrus, one of the oldest surviving medical documents on Earth. They listed it as a treatment for 32 separate conditions. Archaeologists later found garlic bulbs inside the pyramids themselves. The workers who built those structures were given garlic every single day, not as food, but as a biological maintenance protocol to sustain their physical endurance under extreme conditions. 3,500 years of documented use, 168 years since Pasteur confirmed the science, and your doctor has never once mentioned a jar of garlic and honey sitting on your kitchen shelf. Ask yourself why. Now, let us answer that question. In 1910, a report was published in the United States. It was called the Flexner Report. It was commissioned by the Carnegie Foundation and financially backed by the Rockefeller Organization. Its stated purpose was to reform medical education in America, to raise standards, to eliminate incompetent schools, to make medicine more scientific. What it also did was this. It systematically removed botanical therapies, herbal medicine, and non-pharmaceutical treatments from the curriculum of every accredited medical school in the country. Within 20 years of that report, more than half of all medical schools in America had closed, specifically those that taught plant-based medicine, naturopathy, and traditional remedies that could not be manufactured, packaged, and sold. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is a documented historical event recorded in peer-reviewed medical literature. Here is what you cannot do with a garlic clove. You cannot patent it. Under international patent law, Plants growing naturally cannot receive pharmaceutical patent protection. A plant is not an invention, which means no company can own it. No company can charge you for it. No company can build a billion-dollar revenue stream from a jar on your kitchen shelf. And here is what has happened since. The WHO now lists antibiotic resistance as one of the greatest threats to global health. In 2021 alone, an estimated 4.71 million deaths worldwide were associated with bacterial resistance to antibiotics that once worked. The antibiotics are failing. The resistance is growing. The pipeline of new pharmaceutical antibiotics is, according to the WHO's own 2024 report, critically insufficient to meet the threat. The system, built in 1910, is showing its cracks. And the jar, the $3 jar that has been sitting on kitchen shelves since before Pasteur was born, is still there, waiting, unchanged. So, what actually happens inside it? Let me show you what happens inside the jar. Week 1. You place raw garlic cloves whole, uncut, unpeeled into a clean glass jar. You pour raw honey over them until every clove is fully submerged. You close the lid, not tightly. You leave it at room temperature, away from direct sunlight. In those first 7 days, something invisible begins. The moisture from the garlic slowly dilutes the surface of the honey. The glucose oxidase enzyme naturally present in raw honey becomes activated. It begins producing hydrogen peroxide at a continuous, low-level rate, not enough to damage tissue, but enough to create an antimicrobial environment that keeps harmful microbes from contaminating the ferment. At the same time, inside each garlic clove, a different process starts. The cell walls of the garlic begin to slowly break down in the acidic environment of the honey, which maintains a pH between 3.2 and 4.5. Raw garlic contains a family of sulfur compounds in their precursor form, bound, stable, waiting. As the clove slowly breaks down over weeks inside the honey, those precursor compounds undergo a gradual enzymatic conversion, week 2 and 3. This slow conversion, driven by the interaction between the garlic's own biological chemistry and the acidic, low-water environment of the raw honey, produces a stable sulfur-containing amino acid called S-allyl cysteine, SAC. You will not read about SAC in most medical textbooks, but it has been studied in peer-reviewed research. Its oral bioavailability, meaning the percentage of it that actually reaches the bloodstream after consumption, has been measured at exceptionally high levels in controlled pharmacokinetic studies, with researchers noting it is rapidly absorbed from the gastrointestinal tract with limited metabolic breakdown. For comparison, the allicin in a raw garlic clove, or in a standard garlic supplement pill, is unstable. It is broken down by stomach acid, by heat, by light, before much of it can be absorbed. SAC does not behave that way. SAC is water-soluble. SAC is heat-stable. SAC survives the journey through the gastrointestinal tract and enters the bloodstream largely intact. Week 4, 5, and 6. The SAC concentration inside the jar continues to build. The honey around the garlic cloves darkens, deepening to a richer amber. The cloves themselves shift from their original white to a translucent golden brown. The honey loosens slightly, becoming thinner as it draws more moisture from the garlic. These are not signs of spoilage. These are signs that the biological conversion is proceeding exactly as it should. And the honey itself is not passive in this process. Raw honey contains 3 separate antimicrobial mechanisms operating simultaneously. Hydrogen peroxide produced by glucose oxidase. Methylglyoxal, a compound with stable antibacterial properties, independent of peroxide and B-defensin. 1. A naturally occurring antimicrobial protein deposited by bees during honey production. You are not fermenting garlic in a simple sugar solution. You are fermenting garlic inside a biological system that has its own defenses already built in. Now, here is how you set this up, and here is the mistake I made the first time. You need 3 things. A clean, dry glass jar with a lid, raw, unprocessed honey, not the squeeze bottle from the supermarket shelf. That honey has been heated and filtered, and the enzymes are gone in fresh garlic, whole bulbs. Step 1. Separate the cloves, leaving their papery skin intact if possible. Do not crush them. Do not cut them. Do not cut them. A whole clove releases its compounds more slowly and more evenly, which is exactly what you want over a 6-week fermentation window. Step 2. Fill the jar approximately 2/3 with garlic cloves. Pour raw honey slowly over the top until every clove is fully covered with at least half an inch of honey above the highest clove. No clove should be touching air. Step 3. Place the lid on the jar, loosely. Do not seal it tight. Here is where I went wrong the first time. I sealed the lid completely. Within 4 days, the fermentation process had produced enough carbon dioxide gas that the jar had swollen under pressure. I lost the entire first batch. Carbon dioxide is a natural byproduct of fermentation. It needs a way out. A loose lid, or a lid turned just slightly back from fully closed, is sufficient. Step 4. For the first 3 days, turn the jar upside down once each day to redistribute the honey over the cloves. After day 3, leave it completely undisturbed. Step 5. Wait. 6 weeks. The system will do the rest. 6 weeks later, the jar on your shelf looks different now. The honey has deepened, darker, richer, the color of old amber. The garlic cloves have turned translucent, golden brown, soft. The sharp, aggressive smell of raw garlic is gone. In its place is something warmer, more complex, something that does not have a name in modern chemistry because it was never given one. What is inside that jar has been documented. The SAC that has accumulated over 6 weeks is what researchers describe as a powerful free radical scavenger. Free radicals are the unstable molecules produced by the body under stress, under inflammation, under the cumulative weight of aging. They damage cells, they damage vessels. They contribute to the biological processes that we call chronic disease. SAC has been shown in peer-reviewed research to neutralize superoxide, anion, hydrogen peroxide, and hydroxyl radical, 3 of the most destructive free radical species the body produces. The same compound has been noted in studies to modulate inflammatory markers, specifically the cytokines that drive chronic, low-grade inflammation, not acute inflammation, the kind that heals a wound. The other kind, the quiet, persistent kind, that accumulates over decades in people who are told their lab results are normal, while their body signals something different. There is also this. Research published in peer-reviewed cardiovascular literature, including a meta-analysis of 12 separate trials across 553 patients, recorded meaningful reductions in blood pressure among participants who consumed aged garlic extract, containing SAC results that the researchers themselves noted were comparable to standard antihypertensive approaches. And the honey. A 2024 peer-reviewed study recorded that the combination of honey and garlic demonstrated significant antimicrobial activity against tested organisms in laboratory conditions, activity that the researchers themselves concluded warranted further investigation as a natural antimicrobial protocol. You are not holding a folk remedy. You are holding a documented biological system that took 6 weeks and $3 to produce. One more thing. Once SAC is formed inside the jar, it is stable. Research has confirmed that SAC content remains constant for at least 3 months after formation. Your jar does not expire quickly. It waits for you. And none of this requires a prescription. None of this requires insurance. None of this requires anyone's permission. Always listen to your body. This is ancestral knowledge, a record of what existed before modern medicine decided what you are allowed to know. It is not a replacement for medical care. It is a reminder that nature built something here, long before any of us arrived to name it. Before you leave, I have one question for you. Not about garlic, not about honey, about memory. Think about the people who came before you. Your grandparents, your great-grandparents, the ones who lived through wars, through winters, through decades, without a doctor on every corner and a pharmacy on every street. What did they keep in their kitchen? What did they reach for when someone in the family was sick and there was no prescription, no clinic, no option that cost money? I ask this because every week, in the comments of this archive, someone writes to tell me that their grandmother kept a jar exactly like this one, a jar of garlic and honey, on a shelf, always there. Never explained, just there. They did not know about gamma-glutamyl transpeptidase. They did not know about S-allyl cysteine or bioavailability or antimicrobial cytokine pathways. They knew something simpler. They knew that it worked. And they kept the knowledge alive the only way they could by doing it, and teaching it, and passing the jar forward. Tell me about yours. In the comments below, did your grandmother, your grandfather, anyone from that generation keep something like this? A ferment, a remedy, a jar that nobody talked about but everybody knew. Leave your story. I read every one. If you want the complete 6-week biological record in written form, the exact ratios, the weekly observation guide, and 12 additional fermented plant protocols from this archive, it is in the Healing Plants Archive Vault Guide. The link is in the pinned comment below. And if someone you care about has never been told that nature built something like this video costs nothing to share. Send it to them. Not for this channel, for them. The antibiotics market will grow by another $16 billion in the next 4 years. Every dollar in that number is a person who has not yet seen this jar. I am the Healing Plants Archive. The vault is still open.